With a company that's growing as fast as we are, it's unbelievable how valuable time is.
We're all working towards delivering this technology to the world.
You've got to be able to have the proper support behind you. You've got to be able to move fast.
Speed really is the only sustainable competitive advantage we have.
I'm driven by technology because I see the innovations in technology as a way for us to remove limits from humanity. When we were looking for the systems we needed to scale a business, there was only one company that was approaching it the way that we approached our business.
Revenue recognition was becoming a real pain. I'm shutting off this accounting system and we're rolling forward with NetSuite, Suite Success. It was awesome.
You've got different legal and regulatory environments that you're operating in, different currencies that you're operating in.
We have so much other things that we have to worry about. You have to have a rock on, and that's NetSuite.
The right technology that allows us to operate seamlessly at this scale is crucial for survival.
This software is going to be able to grow with us as quickly as we can grow.
The NetSuite partnership can take us from 20 countries today to maybe 100 countries in the next couple of years.
NetSuite will be a part of our vision for the life of the company because it's so scalable.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome EVP of Development, Oracle NetSuite Global Business Unit, Evan Goldberg.
Hello, fellow software entrepreneurs, and welcome to the Software Industry Keynote. We're a software company. What you hear in all these conferences, next and change and transform, and who knows that better than software? I mean, why is it software in the first place? The reason it's software and not hardware is because it needs to be able to change frequently and adapt. And now companies that, used to be hardware companies are fashioning themselves as software companies. Your car is now basically a software platform. And NetSuite has lived the software industry story over 18 years. We saw the full arc of what might happen to a software company. We started with 4 people, in a small office, and we built it into a 5,000-person company that got acquired. We went public. We adapted to an enormous amount of change. And the entire time, over those 18 years, we were running NetSuite. And we built NetSuite to help companies like ours and like yours adapt to the only constant, which is change. There's, just as there has been for years, there's enormous changes coming to the industry. And we're committed to help you adapt to those. So some of the changes are, again, regulatory, how you need to manage your revenue. Some of the changes are about international and what's happening in emerging markets. And of course, many of the changes are specific to your area. Whatever they are, you have competitors constantly. Because it's software, they can write some code and potentially catch up to you, and you need to stay ahead. So we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the changes coming to the industry. We're going to have some industry experts, some old faces and new faces, and we're going to bring on some customers to tell you how they've been using NetSuite to get ready for next. And so to start, I'm excited to introduce the Senior Vice President of Sales for Oracle NetSuite, Mark Huffman. He's an old face, but he's young at heart, very young at heart. Mark?
I do not take that personally. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Huffman, and I've been with the company for 14 years, and we're going to talk a lot about change today. And one of the things I think we do as an organization, and our software really does for people, companies, is help them manage change in a very frequent environment, if you will. And as Evan mentioned, having 14 years of experience, I've seen a lot of changes that have evolved in the NetSuite business through the IPO, through us expanding internationally, through changing in accounting standards, change we serve our customers, changes that we roll out and introduce as we've come together with Oracle. Change is something, like I mentioned, I think we're very, very good at. The industry itself has got, one of the things that doesn't change in our industry is the buzzwords, and disruption is one of those big buzzwords that we hear out there. The other thing that's out there is this concept of millennials, and I always like to take a little poke at the millennial population. Sorry. The millennials, I think, first, the millennials in the room may not know the difference between the band AC/DC, which I'm a fan of, and the electrical current or the flow of electricity. I think they think that the word disruption is right next to the word unicorn in the dictionary. Disruption is obviously something that's been going on since the history of commerce. You know, the telephone disrupted communication industry. Henry Ford disrupted the transportation industry. Disruption has been around us forever and ever. What I think is different now, and which is unique to the software industry, which we're a part of, is the pace of that change. Of all the things that are going on in the world right now, retail may be the one area that's changing nearly as fast, but the software industry has the fastest pace of change that's out there. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the business challenges that we see in the industry right now, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the changes we're making as an organization and how we've sort of recast some of our methodologies to serve the industry, talk about some of our solutions to some of these challenges we have. Then, as Evan mentioned, we have a number of great customers that are going to come up, and some other experts to talk about many of the concepts. Sort of the three things that are going on in the world right now in the software and the technology space. It's pretty clear that investors value growth. Investors value growth much more than they value EBITDA performance or any other metric out there. And if you want to stay in the expansive multiple arena, regardless if you're a private company or a public company, you have to stay on a growth trajectory. You saw a very big pullback in 2016 in the IPO market because the prior year's run-up, a lot of companies that had high growth strategies were deemed to have these high multiples, and they had to take some time and actually grow into those multiples. Some of those have changed in the last 6 months or so. We've seen the IPO market pick up. Obviously, there's a new type of exit strategy out there. The strategic investors are spending a lot of money to buy technology companies from all walks of life, all industries. The PE world, incidentally, 1 in 5 of NetSuite customers that we acquired last year, 1 in 5 were either VC or PE backed. On top of that, the PE world is sort of coalesced around NetSuite. Not that we have a preponderance of the investments going to NetSuite, but if you consider how big the universe is, over 20% of all the PE-backed carve-outs that were documented and recorded last year went out on NetSuite. So clearly having an infrastructure, a business operating system like NetSuite is something advantageous for those who are in the growth world. The other thing that's going on in the world with this little thing that's in your pocket, social, mobile, all the other things, the sort of heightened sense of urgency and the immediacy of getting things now, sort of the Amazon-esque of things, is putting all sorts of pressure on all businesses, but technology businesses specifically, to have immediate response to changing in the consumer interactions they have. So companies that have, I haven't talked about software being flexible. I would say that you have some software, some things that precede the cloud era software, which much more rich, call them semi-soft software, if you will. I think of them like these big concrete pillars that have been sunk into the earth. And if you really want to change some of those things in the old software infrastructure world, you sort of have to dig some things up and really do some work to change that, as opposed to a modern cloud-based architecture like NetSuite has, where we're actually really good at managing some of those change and some of the change that it gets imposed upon a customer in all walks of life by the change in the consumer demands on those companies. And then the last thing, obviously, is regulators throughout the world, not just regulators, but tax agencies, reporting agencies, et cetera, try to keep up with the pace of the change that's going on in the world right now and the changing political climate, regulatory climate. It puts a lot of strain on companies' infrastructure to make sure they can manage that change as they go through regulatory change. So we're going to have a group of people talk about those concepts today. If I go back to the first thing, whether you're going from pre-revenue to your first $1 million, $1 million to 50 million, up to $500 million in growth, growth is valued at a premium. Having the right infrastructure, be it managing your people assets, be it managing your financial assets, giving you the platform that allows you to expand into new markets, global, acquire and onboard disparate technologies, really, really critical thing. Some of our friends here are going to talk about some of those things for us today. The other thing that's happening, obviously, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, systems, devices connecting and going at it one another, really driving a lot of change in the industry. So those people who used to produce physical goods and gear now are software developers. That gives them the opportunity perhaps to extend their product line by offering a subscription, a service offering. You know, a software company may have built software IP for a number of years. Now perhaps there's a consulting angle based on some data that they've accumulated over 15 years of experience in a particular industry. They can turn around and monetize that in a different way and build time and labor against those kinds of things. Those changing business models are critical, and having the right infrastructure to sort of manage that change as you go along and very quickly adapt are critical to businesses. And then lastly, the regulatory concerns. We're going to spend a fair bit of time, I think, talking about this. Again, when we see our customers imposed upon tax changes throughout the world, harmonization of tax strategies at the provincial, federal level in certain countries, reporting changes and the reporting requirements and all those things, and then lastly, the regulatory things like we have right now upon us, ASC 606. Those things put tremendous strain on organizations, not just the technology, but the organizations themselves in terms of getting advice, building a plan, collaborating across finance, IT, the other departments that are critical to roll those things out. Those things are really, really, really critical to organizations to get right. We've been doing a number of seminars, webinars, partnered with accounting firms, advisory firms. We've been polling our customers. Shockingly, even though we're in the midst of this change, 60% of our customers have yet to develop a firm plan on how they're going to adopt ASC 606. So we're obviously invested and interested in your success around this, and we're going to try to help you along with some of those, with customers' examples and some of the things that we have coming up here. So without further ado, to get right into some of this stuff, it's my pleasure. Well, actually, sorry. The last thing, and this is something that we sort of started to re-engineer our business as we looked at the things that we needed to do and change about 24 months ago. You heard it announced earlier. We've been living in this for the last 24 months. We rolled out this new methodology called Suite Success, and we've taken our long-term dedication to the software industry. All the leading practices that we've witnessed and viewed companies grow on our platform and our technology, we've purposely built this into the product itself. We harmonized the engagement model that we have with our clients so that we sell what we can deliver and we deliver what we can sell. And you're going to hear a lot more about Suite Success, and if you want to learn more, talk to your account manager, learn more about what it means in your industry, in your particular account, as you sort of leave the conference. But you'll hear a lot more about how we've taken and created this industry cloud based on leading practices, and we think we're really changing the marketplace with this. It's my pleasure to ask to come to the stage Director of Product Management, also known as Sweet Bill. He's the Director of Product Management in the software and the billing industries that we have, Bill Schomburg. Sweet Bill.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to meet you, Sweet Bill. Certainly easier than Schonbrunn. So I have the distinct pleasure of speaking to you today about 3 incredible innovations that are going on in NetSuite for the software industry. Suite Success, Suite People, and Suite Billing and Advanced Revenue Management. So let's go into them one by one. Suite success. As Jim said this morning, and Mark just talked about, it's the culmination of a many-year transformation that NetSuite's gone through. This conference is about next. When NetSuite was figuring out how to get to our next, this was a very key piece of it. We're going to talk about each of these pillars, but in totality, what it brings together is our great asset, the suite, NetSuite. It brings together what we've learned over 20 years and tens of thousands of deployments and implementations, leading practices, a customer engagement model, as Mark said, that we sell what we deliver and we deliver what we sell. And we bring this all together into the world's first unified industry cloud solution. This is really pretty incredible stuff. Pillar by pillar, we'll start with build. Build is the suite. It is what we deliver to you. It's what we use ourselves. We are a NetSuite customer. I'll talk a little bit about suite people and suite billing in today's presentation, but we've changed the way that we develop. We now don't develop in a generic fashion. We're thinking about those leading practices. We're thinking about roles. We're thinking about industry. And we're making sure that we build those best practices right into the software before we sell it and before we deploy it. Now, I remember my first day at NetSuite like it was yesterday. And I remember getting the email that said, you're a NetSuite user, and I clicked on it and I signed up, and I had this. Now, I imagine some of you have the same experience. It's a greenfield, it's a clean sheet of paper, we can go anywhere. And that's wonderful, but NetSuite knows something about me and you when you log on. It knows what industry you're in, it knows what role you're in, and inherently it knows what's important to you. I have a 10-year-old son, a precocious 10-year-old named Josh, and he asks me on a fairly consistent basis, Daddy, what do you do for a living? You may get a similar question. And I never had a good answer. And I think the answer, as we were working through this, is we make decisions based on the information we get. Something happens, we ask questions, we get information, we plot a course. So instead of this, we need to look at things like this. So if you want to look at SaaS metrics, if this is the information that helps drive your role in the company, or this if you're in retail, or this if you're a board member, this is what your first deployment, your first engagement with NetSuite looks like, because we know through those leading practices that this is the information you need to do your job better. This is what's built in. Now, we've talked about stairways to heaven. This is the software vertical stairway to heaven. All of us in this room are in the software vertical together. The word implementation has always rubbed me the wrong way, because it has a connotation of a finite starting and ending point. You start your implementation, you end your implementation. But your business never stands still. Your business is in motion at all times. You ideally are moving up the stairway, moving up the ladder, becoming bigger. But you're not standing still, nevertheless. So working with NetSuite is about consuming it. How do you consume it? There's a great analogy for any runners in the room. How do you run a marathon? How do you train for a marathon? And the answer is one step at a time. So how do you deploy a NetSuite in your organization? How do you consume it? One step at a time. Depending on where you are in your growth trajectory, what vertical you're in, that will change how you look to consume NetSuite. A 5-person company versus a 5,000-person company, we have different capacities. Our ability to consume something this big when we're small. At a 5-person company, one person does 20 things. At a 5,000-person company, 20 people do the same thing. It changes our ability to consume. Historically, software companies have tried to come out with light versions or skinny down, watered down versions, and they don't work for smaller companies, because we're small doesn't mean we're less complex. It just means we can't consume at the same pace. So the stairway really speaks to a deep understanding of what you're able to consume. And as Jim said, much happier customers, much faster deployments. This is really working. Now, optimize, the last pillar in this piece. Again, we're always in motion. We, NetSuite, are in motion with you. Twice a year, we release more software. 17.1 rolling out now. 17.2 will roll out in a number of months, then 18.1 and 18.2, and on we go. If an implementation is finite, how are you going to optimize your business to take advantage of these things? So suite people, which we'll talk about next, how do you take advantage of that? So it's a continuous cycle of optimizing, because we're consistently putting out more and we're consistently updating those leading practices. That's Suite Success. Next is Suite People. Now, as Jim showed the pinwheel this morning, Suite People is everything an HR professional needs to engage and deploy HR applications in your business. But NetSuite being NetSuite, and the fact that we have a unified suite, we could do this a little differently. So we put people in the center. We put people in the core. We're taking HR and making it integral, and I'll show you what I mean by this. This is Samantha. She's an inventory manager, and I think if I asked most people in this room, do you think Samantha needs to know what's going on in the HR system? The vast majority of people would say, no. She's an inventory. What does she need to know about HR? But let's zone in on a couple of things in her dashboard. Well, we can see that growth is up dramatically. Orders, 61.5% up. Stocking is up. Look a little more closely, we notice that there's some folks on vacation. 2 people are off today. There's some new hires at the bottom, but they don't start till May. And there's more time off approvals. So engaging, using the unified suite and engaging for Samantha, that means giving her the HR information that she needs to do her job better. She needs to know that today she may be capacity constrained. That's HR information unified in the suite. Again, in a way only NetSuite can. Now that information comes from within the suite. As an HR system, we put in our time off requests, and as that gets approved, it flows around. Other people consume this information in a different way. This is Emily. And when we think of engagement and engaging with the HR system, we're not thinking about Facebook or LinkedIn engagement. We don't want people on this for a long time. We want them to get the information as fast as humanly possible so they can do their job. So Emily needs to look at the employee directory, or you see kudos in the bottom corner. We built some social currency right into the platform. You can give a little attaboy or attagirl right within your HR system. So Emily might want to go and take a look at the organization. So we've built a beautiful visual organizational browser. You can look at the hierarchy of your organization, zoom in, zoom out. You can see what level somebody's on, who they report to, and who reports to them. It's a great way to navigate what can be a lot of information. You may also want to just go and look at who's in sales, drill in. So here's the 20 people in the employee directory in sales, but a slightly different view. Who are they? Who do they report to? But how do I get in contact with them? What's their phone number? What's their email address? Again, quick engagement to get me what I need to get on with my day. Now, when we talked about Suite Success, we know that it's verticalized for your industry. We know that it's role-based. But as we optimize, as we bring out new functionality, it also means that we need stairways at a module level. So as you look to consume Suite People, as you look to purchase it and consume it and put it in your organization, where are you on this stairway? Not where are you on the software stairway. Where are you on the HR stairway inside of software? That will help us understand how you can consume this module inside of your organization. So Jim talks about being all in on Suite Success. We are all in on Suite Success. Lastly, Suite Billing, product apparently named after me. It's near and dear to my heart. We've been hard at work on Suite Billing because we look at the world and we've seen that most companies came from one of these 3 pillars. You were a product company, or you were a service company, or an as-a-service company. We started in one generally, some 2, but mostly one. The world has moved to these next-ready models. You can think of Internet of Things, almost any Internet of Things company, there's a device and a service. I like to talk about the Dollar Shave Club. They capitalized on the fact that men are inherently lazy, and we don't like going to the drugstore to buy razors, so they'll deliver them to your door. And they use this disruptive next-ready model, and a few years after their instantiation, who followed suit? Gillette. They offer the same model now. So these next-ready models are very important, but they're not necessarily the easiest thing to do, because if you think from a transactional point of view, you think kind of NetSuite out for a moment. Product companies put in orders. Service companies are projects if you're in Canada like me. As a service is a subscription, and they all flow down to invoices. And I'm purposely using a plural there because these are siloed in most cases. I've yet to meet a company or a customer who wants more than one invoice. So I want you to just mentally remember this picture because we're going to come back to it. There is something missing, dramatically missing from this picture. Revenue management. We're going to talk a lot about this today. Mark was hinting at revenue management as well. Now, ASC 606, so in addition to the complexity and need for revenue management, the standards are changing, so the sands are shifting under our feet. But everyone kind of agrees that there are 5 things that you need to do for revenue recognition, 5 basic things. Now, Mark's stat that 60% of our customers haven't started getting ready for this, that's kind of scary. So NetSuite being NetSuite, we're going to give you a little push. We're going to get you started. We're going to get the flywheel rolling. Inside of advanced revenue management, we've pre-built the capabilities that line up with each of these 5. So we can't get you all the way there, but we can give you a bit of a start. Now back to that picture. Revenue recognition lines in here, right? And it's complicated. Different products or services get recognized different ways. Our view of all of this is that orders need to be unified. You're a singular customer, whether you're buying 1 or 5 things from us. Your billing engine and revenue recognition flow together, and there are some things in the world that are just inherently meant to stay together. Hall & Oates, Simon and Garfunkel, Peas and Carrots, Jenny and Forrest. You just shouldn't break these things apart. Suite billing and revenue recognition, you do not want to break these things apart. We think about them as one. They're not integrated, they're built together. They're designed together in the core as one thing. I've heard some of the smartest minds in software suggest that keeping these apart and possibly having a lost in translation moment between billing and RevRec is reckless, and I would tend to agree. So, in conclusion, Suite success. This is the unified industry cloud solution from NetSuite. I think this is a competitive differentiator. It's the unfair advantage for you. If you're competing with another software company and you have NetSuite and they don't, you have an unfair advantage. Take it. Suite people, unified, on top of NetSuite. People in the core, built on Suite Cloud, flexible to be extended. And lastly, Suite billing. Now last SuiteWorld, we announced Suite billing. We've been hard at work on it. In 2017, we've come through our launch phase. We have customers that are live. We've got the feedback. So today, we're getting ready to release the hounds. And with due respect, you are the hounds. We are going to release to the software vertical sometime this summer. So we can't wait to see what you do with Suite billing and how these things help you get ready for next. I thank you all very much. And I'd like to bring up Kelly Scott.
Thank you, sweet Bill. So as you guys have heard, there are some pretty incredible changes coming to the industry. What a better way to see the impact of these changes than to hear from customers that are planning, navigating, successfully getting ready for the changes to happen to the industry. I'd like to invite our first customer on stage, iCharts, a leader in the visual reporting for NetSuite that joined the NetSuite family back in December of 2016 through Suite Success. It is my pleasure to invite Seymour Dunker, CEO and founder of iCharts.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Seymour. Thanks for joining us. So I mentioned you guys joined the NetSuite family back in December. You're here to talk about Suite Success and kind of what that journey has looked like. But before we get into that, walk us through who iCharts is.
Sure, absolutely. So iCharts is a business intelligence and analytics solution built natively on top of NetSuite. With iCharts, you can create interactive charts, you can create pivot tables, basically get real-time insights right inside of your NetSuite dashboard. For example, you can look at your ARR trends, how's your churn coming along, figure out what your most profitable customer segments are, all inside of NetSuite. Last year, you selected us as the Suite App of the Year. That was awesome. This year, we are proud Diamond sponsors, and most importantly, this is like the Super Bowl for us this year. We just launched our all-new iCharts, great new capabilities, great new features, look and feel, and very excited about it. Looking forward to demo it to everybody.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you. So you guys were on QuickBooks before you joined NetSuite, and a main driver for that transition was Suite Success. So what made you feel comfortable about making the transition to NetSuite?
Sure. First of all, it's great to be a NetSuite customer now. And SuiteSuccess really did it for us. Look, we are a fast-growing company, like I'm sure like a lot of companies here in the audience. And what that basically means is that I have to, like the most important thing for me is to focus our resources, limited resources, on those things that matter most, which is building a great product and bringing that product to customers and like yourselves. So SuiteSuccess, when SuiteSuccess came along, I said, okay, that's it, that's great. It basically gives us two things. It's prepackaged configuration, and prepackaged configuration gives me first of all, a clear timeline, start to end, which I can plan for. But most importantly, it is also allows me to reduce the required skill that I need to have on board to implement. I don't need to worry which is my most important configuration, what is the right configuration for me, because you guys have already done that, you've packaged that. The second thing is best practices. So look, as a fast-growing company, things change every day, right? So new stuff comes up. Yesterday it's order management, today it's customer success, tomorrow it's international growth, and a lot of these things have the wheel has, I don't want to reinvent the wheel here, right? So what I want to do is I want to implement I want to understand what the best practices are, I want to implement those best practices, and I want to select them from a source that I can trust, that's NetSuite.
Great. So then, other than saving time, not reinventing the wheel,
right,
what else has SuiteSuccess enabled your business to do that you guys couldn't do before?
Well, basically it is all about allowing me to focus our scarce resources on what matters and most to us and where I can bring most value to our customers. So focus, basically focus and resource optimization.
Amazing. So you're founder, you're CEO in the software industry, and you've heard a lot of the changes that are coming. How are you preparing iCharts for what's ahead?
Sure. There's a lot of change happening. So I guess like the one that's most relevant to us is data, big data. So more and more data is collected every day. People are measuring more and more things. They want to be able to act on that data in real time. It's almost as real time action across the organization is really key. So that's why our partnership is such a great partnership. Is you collect the data in NetSuite, and with iCharts, you basically get real-time insights you can act upon. So that's most important for us.
Amazing. So we've heard the theme of SuiteWorld is next starts now. What is next for you guys?
So we're following the great example of SuiteSuccess. So we are launching our own quick templates, basically prepackaged KPIs that you can get up and running like immediately. For the software verticals, these are such as ARR trends, churn trends, customer segmentation, how is that changing over time. So we provide the best of two worlds. So you get those prepackaged right out of the box, but also KPIs constantly change and evolve. I've been working constantly on the dashboard for my company. So being able to morph those KPIs as your business is morphing, that's kind of like the two things. And as I said before, we are really excited with the all new iCharts. So we've launched that, and I'm almost like inclined to invite everybody to come to our booth outside and take a look. And if I can, I'd love to personally present that to you.
Yeah, you can't miss the booth out there. It's in front there. Well, I want to thank you so much. It's incredible to see you guys and have you partner with us and to join us on stage. So thank you.
Thanks.
I'd now like to invite a customer on stage that is revolutionizing the way that people are working and getting jobs. They have grown like crazy, and I'm excited to walk through their journey with them and with you guys today. It's my pleasure to invite Abigail Schlosser, controller at ShiftGig. Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. So I mentioned you guys are really changing the way people are getting jobs and going to work. People here are probably wondering what I mean by that. So can you elaborate?
Absolutely. The needs and desires of the workforce are changing. People are seeking control and flexibility to manage their work-life balance. So in particular, the largest demographic workforce, millennials, they value the freedom to work where they want, when they want, and for whom they want. So ShiftGig has created a mobile marketplace for temporary labor. So we match businesses with vetted, qualified workers through our app. And
amazing. So I said, you guys are growing like crazy. I imagine there's been some changes. So kind of what's changed for you guys over the last 18 months?
We've experienced exciting changes over the past 18 months. We've grown our corporate employees from 100 to over 225. We've more than tripled our client base to over 1,500 clients, and we've added over 15,000 specialists, our workers, to the workforce. Our vision is to create financial opportunities for the temporary labor force and to connect millions of people to millions of shifts. So we've experienced these changes over the past 18 months. We've invested in our technology, and most importantly, we've partnered with huge financial investors and partners who believe in ShiftGig that have enabled us to invest in our platform.
Amazing. So other than kind of that investment and that relationship you've had, what else has enabled you guys to experience that incredible growth?
So one, it was a major opportunity in the marketplace. Over 18,000 small staffing companies are servicing the workforce, and thanks to our financial investors, we've been able to grow in that marketplace. We've expanded from one vertical in 2015 to 4. We're in the experiential marketing, retail, warehouse, logistics, and we've experienced high growth scale. So partnering with companies like NetSuite and other partners that we've met through NetSuite have really helped enabled our business to support the scale.
Great. So I'm sure there are folks in here about to either embark on this hyper growth journey or seeking advice. Do you have any advice for them on kind of what they need to do to prepare?
Absolutely. Make sure that you plan and execute on that foreseen growth. In particular, having the correct processes in place to help support the scale. So again, this is NetSuite and other partners that can help you with that high volume growth that you're experiencing. I mean, a great concept and business plan can be completely derailed when you don't have the proper systems in place to support that scale. So I think having the correct talent in place along with those systems, planning it, executing on it at every stage in growth is critical.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. One last question for you guys. What can we expect kind of the next step for ShiftGig? What can we kind of see in the future?
More and more, just as Jim McGreever said earlier in this morning's keynote, you'll see more clients, more specialists added to the workforce. You'll see more investment in our technology. So be sure to check out our app. It's ShiftGig /business. Check it out to see what we're about. And we expect to see more financial opportunities for the workforce. And we're really excited about that.
Good. Well, thank you. I'm so excited for you guys, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It is now my pleasure to invite up Ron Gill, NetSuite's former CFO, to walk us through the biggest change in accounting standards in over a decade, ASC 606.
So, hey everybody, I'm Ron Gill. I was at NetSuite for about 10 years and CFO for the last 7 of those, and obviously was a huge daily NetSuite user and a giant fan of the solution. So, although I exited the company a few weeks ago as a result of the acquisition, when they called me and asked if I would come and do something at SuiteWorld, of course I was very excited. I said, of course, I can sober up. I'll put a pants day on the calendar, and I'll come in and do something. And my initial suggestion was that I dress up as Sweet Stanley and run around. These guys thought it would be a better idea if we had a conversation about ASC 606. So I'm here. I got pants on. I'm not dressed like Sweet Stanley. So let's have a little conversation about ASC 606. There's been a sprinkling of information about it, especially as it relates to software, in the presentation so far this afternoon. And I'm hoping, actually, that you're already pretty familiar with ASC 606. And the reason that I'm hoping that is because the Financial Accounting Standards Board finally decided on an implementation deadline that looks like it's going to stick this time. And under that deadline, a public company will have to be compliant for the 2018 period. The irony is that if you're private, you've got an additional year until 2019 to get compliant. But if you're thinking about IPO in 2017 or 2018, you really have to do the implementation now. You may actually have to go before some public companies because you're going to have to get your initial filings under ASC 606 to avoid having a major accounting change hit you immediately after IPO, which of course your investors, your bankers would like you not to have. One of the things that ASC 606 is doing is, of course, bringing US GAAP closer to the international GAAP standards, international accounting standards. And as part of that, one of the things that most dramatically impacts software companies in particular is that industry-specific GAAP guidance goes away as it relates to revenue. So for software companies, that means no more 97.2. The revenue standard we've all lived with for the past 2 decades goes away. VSOE, the concept of VSOE, just goes away. And so those are very, very big changes for a software company. Unfortunately, the complexity that came with VSOE, the transaction level, super detailed complexity that came with VSOE does not go away. In fact, it probably gets a bit worse under ASC 606. And in addition, although we call it a revenue standard, a lot of companies that are implementing, getting ready to implement ASC 606 now are finding that the impact on the way they recognize expenses is at least as dramatic as that on the way they recognize revenue. So challenges in that the problem is rather urgent and extremely complex, and the deadline is looming. The good news is that we've got 2 people to help me discuss this today who know more about the topic than I do, so let me introduce those guys and bring them up. The first, Prasad Kadambi. Prasad is a partner at KPMG. In fact, he was our audit partner at NetSuite until recently. But more importantly, Prasad was seconded to the Financial Accounting Standards Board as these rules were being written, and today is probably the world's foremost authority on ASC 606 and the way it affects software companies. So please join me in welcoming Prasad Kadambi to stage.
Hey, Ron.
Scott, hey. And then second, let me introduce Scott Davison. Scott is a CFO at Hortonworks, and Hortonworks is a subscription software company. Scott took them public in 2014, and today Scott and his team are really in the middle of implementing the change to move them to ASC 606. So here with some news from the front, the actual trenches of doing this, please help me welcome Scott Davison. Thanks a lot. And Prasad, maybe I'll start with you with just some, to just sort of help us frame the problem. You know, probably a lot of us have been through a lot of accounting changes, even specific revenue recognition in the software industry accounting changes. I mentioned 97.2. I was around in the late 90s and had to implement that. At NetSuite, we had to adopt 0801 around 2010. There have been lots of changes that affected software revenue recognition. What's the big deal about this one?
Yeah. Finally, it looks like I'm a rock star over here, so it feels great. So 606 is, I call 606 is significantly different from 97.2. 97.2, the standard was written by the group of industry folks and public accounting folks. So it was more a codification of what was happening and to get rid of the bad practice. But 606 is one standard, globally applicable for all industries. So the one danger I kind of highlight to people is do not try to rationalize under 606 on what you know, but take a clean sheet of paper and think about what are the rules and how does those rules apply to you. Because you might be in a slippery slope if you try to rationalize things under 606.
Don't try to make sense of it. Just look at the rules. So you were there, obviously, at the birth of this thing in the initial drafting, and you've started to work with some companies that are starting to implement. What are the kinds of things that you think are going to be the biggest impacts on software companies resulting from these rules?
So for the biggest impact for software companies, to be honest, 2 weeks ago I was on a roadshow talking to all the investors. It was actually eye-opening, the feedback, what I received. In terms from the investor's perspective, they're going to get a lot more transparency in disclosures. Right? So what you're going to see is your sales guy would exactly know how much bookings he needs to book to hit his number. Like finance cannot lie to sales, hey, your target is X.
I don't know what he's talking about.
But your sales guy needs to read the financials. Once he picks up the financials, he can know the number. The same thing, the investors are going to get a lot more transparency in terms of disclosures. So that's a big change.
Right.
And from a software companies, if you're not a SaaS company and if you're an on-prem software company, then it becomes a lot more pressure, or if you're a public company, on are you going to leave value in the table? Because to make or break a quarter for an upfront model, are you going to leave value at the table? Because you are going to be trying to make your number, hit your number, because you don't have this ratable subscription revenue, because on the current US GAAP, you had this notion of VSOV, so you are getting this ratable rev rec model that goes away. So if your model if there's a business model change, people call it as an accounting impact. In fact, I was talking to some sales guys. Think of this as a business model change and try to think about what changes you need to do. Don't think about it as an accounting change, because sometimes your financial models are changing. The financial models, how investors look at it, will change if you change your rev rec models.
And as you hinted, it's not just that the accounting for revenue recognition changes. The disclosures associated with that accounting are significantly more than what's been around in the past. So that's a big change as well. Can you, I briefly touched on it in my opening remarks. Can you remind us of the timeline?
Yeah, for public companies, for calendar year public company, it goes into effect Jan 1, 2018. For non-public entities, it goes into effect 1 year later, 2019. But you do have an option of early adopting. You are seeing some software companies trying to early adopt. The largest one being Microsoft might be going early adopting next quarter for them. But like I said, this is like a significant, not just an accounting change. You would need to think about it as your investor relations, sales compensation. In fact, I would kind of highlight that the biggest impact, you may not see a huge revenue recognition impact, but you might see a significant sales compensation accounting impact, because you do get to capitalize sales commission and amortize it over a longer period. So you are seeing a significant earnings benefit in terms of the P&L. Okay.
And it's been mentioned earlier, what's your experience in terms of how prepared, outside the very, very large companies, how prepared are companies?
So outside the very large companies, I am very nervous because I am in charge of our 65 public companies in my office for 606 adoption. We are really behind. I think it's, in terms of, I call the chiefs may know what it is, but there are a lot of Indians where the sausage gets made, because I can't be the only guy looking at all the numbers, but so it is, people are behind. I would say you need to jump on it ASAP, because this is not gonna, you're not gonna get another deferral.
Right. Well, speaking of jumping on it and actually doing something toward getting ready for it, Scott, let's turn to you. Maybe give us the quick overview of Hortonworks, so we're oriented to the company before we dive in.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, Hortonworks is an open source data management software company. So we were the first open source company that went public since Red Hat did it in 1999. So by virtue of that, our model's a little bit different to begin with. We don't have proprietary software. We use the open source community for development, which provides us a lot of leverage. Our platform provides a data management capability for all the new types of data that are being created out there, both structured and the unstructured types of data that were mentioned before, such as social data, mobile data, and so on and so forth. And so we're, you know, when you say get started ASAP, I think honestly that may even be too late.
When did you guys first start
So we started kind of mid to Q3 of 2016. And you know, the way that we took this approach.
That's a year ago, everybody.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. And you know, the first thing is you clearly have to have a critical team that's involved in that, that's capable, some of which my team is actually attending the conference in many respects. So we're sort of, we had 3 phases. Phase 1 was sort of an evaluation or a gap analysis. And that gap analysis was take the 605 standard and map it against 606. and identify where the differences were, whether it's policy, procedures, technical position papers, and so on and so forth. Then evaluate that and then figure out in phase 2 where we are against existing systems in place, processes, as Prasad meant. There's other aspects of this that touch the company, right? Sales operations, sales, comp planning, forecasting and everything else. And so it's got to be thought through in many, many diametric sort of views. And then we'll get to the implementation phase before December 15. We just went live on ARM about 4 days ago. So quite a new experience, and we're working our way through that now. But the biggest perspective from us on the gap assessment, we did not have VSOE, which you said sort of goes away. So we're not moving from a company with VSOE into ASC 606. We're moving from no VSOE to 606. So we're kind of unique that way. And so that's where ARM is going to be helpful to us and some of the other things that we're doing.
And what about other operational changes? When 97.2 first came in, it was a RevRec standard, but it resulted in all these other process changes. You had to put in all these specific rules with your sales team to maintain VSOE. The deals desk got a lot more responsibility. RevRec desks emerged for the first time. Are you seeing other kinds of processes or operations that are going to get affected by making the changes?
We do in our organization. For example, it'll touch even down into the engineering organization. Our engineering team actually deals with customers directly sometimes beyond just level 3 support, but we co-develop. Because we're an open source company, we co-develop some technology with our customers. So it kind of has a feel where there's a little bit of a support arrangement with them, but there's also deliverables that have different timelines, and it looks like work and materials. So there's a different set of deliverables and standalone selling products or pricing that look a lot different than, let's say, a traditional SaaS in the cloud software company. That has impact to the engineering team. You mentioned some of the other ones: deal desk, deal construction, comp planning, the whole sales operations area. And the other area, frankly, and Prasad will testify to this, I'm sure, it also changes the dynamic with how our auditors will sample revenue and test revenue, right? The dynamics of, if you have a subscription business, as we do, that you would logically expect to sort of come in linearly over a period of time, it may not do that anymore, right? And that's going to have a big difference in planning and forecasting, the way you interact with the board, the way you interact with your lenders, your investors, around disclosure, and your auditors as well.
Right. Maybe, because we're going to run out of time, maybe I'll just ask each of you for advice to companies that are about to need to go through this thing. Maybe Prasad, you want to?
Yeah, I'll just touch on what Scott kind of highlighted. Clearly, if you're a software company, the standard says only if you do annual releases, you're not going to get a ratable model for maintenance, right? So there is a touching on the engineering to make sure you have at least more than single release a year. In terms of auditor perspective, I would say just like starting early, you need to work with the auditors to start early to audit in 2017 to be locksteps right next to you, as opposed to having your auditor come and audit in 18 and he does not agree with most of the conclusions and we are in a problem situation.
Right.
So I would suggest that having your auditor process throughout in 17 would be, especially for a public company, would be an important topic. Scott?
Yeah, I would echo both of those, and I would say don't underestimate the timing we've talked about, but this is a big change management exercise, and it's a change management exercise not just from an accounting or a finance perspective, but to every sort of constituency, both inside and outside of the company. So a change management process that has like very high level communication, that everybody understands that this will have effects to the business more than just the finance and the accounting team, and even the team that deals with NetSuite, I think is critical. And so I'd say that was probably the closing bit on my side.
Right, good. So start yesterday.
Start last year.
Sounds like the message. Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you both so much for sharing your perspective.
Thank you, Ron.
All right.
Thank you.
So next, I think I'd like to call back up on stage Mark Huffman.
Oh,
It is good to see Ron busy again. I'm glad to see that he's sobered up. You know, watching Days of Our Lives on the bottle is sometimes really treacherous, Ron. I don't know if that's next week's seminar. Anyhow, thank you for all our guests. Very informative things. Just to reiterate, you've heard from some customers, some industry people, our former, now sober CFO. Big changes coming around how valuations are done, the growth, how people can scale their businesses, the changing business models we've talked about, a lot of time spent on 606. NetSuite continues to focus on advising and helping our clients around all those things, 606 being one of the key things. We continue to offer webinars, sessions. Reach out, get some help from us. Use the time at the conference to network with other people. Learn about what they're doing to prepare their businesses for these things. And good luck to you on that one. It seems like a very disruptive thing. Before you leave, as we wrap up, come visit us on the demo grounds. I think we've got 16, 18 pods. You can get a demo of Suite People, brand new product. Should be some fantastic things to look out there. Been under works for some time. Suite Billing, Advanced Revenue Management, a lot of the things you talked about today. Get an understanding of the direction we're heading with the roadmap here. Build your network of people that have NetSuite expertise around these things. We have some fantastic people like Suite Bill, a lot of great talent in the demo pods as well. And then lastly, we'll see you at the party next Fest. Get ready to dance your booty off and see some great talent. So thanks for joining us today. Hope it was informative, as fun as it was to deliver to you all. Thank you very much.